Record, stream.
Is that a voice recording software?
It's streaming software
Oh, okay.
that I use to record screen capture.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I've just been thinking around with like weird free versions of things that have record limits.
Yeah, dude, use OBS. It's really good. You can record everything with it, and it's free. It's open source, technically, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's like open source broadcasting software or something like that.
It's free and open source software for video recording and live streaming.
So I have it hooked up to my Twitch account, and this is what I used to stream raids with when we, had a group.
RIP.
All right, so.
RIP Malagos Marauders.
I'm still so proud that that was my name and I came up with it. And it won.
I really liked the other one, to be honest.
I'm sorry, mine was better. Alright, so. Best thing that they did at the very beginning was they made fun of warlords.
Yeah, I did enjoy that.
Because everybody just needs, Garrosh rolling in on a DeLorean.
I'm like, they're talking about everything seriously, and as soon as that moment happens, it's like, lol, they make fun of themselves for how crappy Dreamlore was.
It had a lot of good ideas. I will give them that. They just didn't execute.
They had ideas, but implementation is also important.
Right. I mean, at least Blackrock Foundry was cool. If we're talking raids.
You can have good raids, but if you don't have good single-player content, then I feel like it's not ideal.
Yeah, and Apexis crystals were, a fucking travesty.
I really hated the way they changed dailies, though. With the whole, like, fill up the bar thing, that was just awful to me.
That was such a grind.
Yeah, it's just, instead of having lots of little things that you're completing quickly, it's one thing that you're completing slowly, and I feel like that made it feel like more of a chore.
It feels like more of a chore, and it lowers that reward loop that you want when you're playing a game.
Yeah.
So yeah, after that, okay, so let's talk about that cinematic that they showed.
Which one, the features or the actual intro cinematic?
The kind of both.
The features came first, I think.
I don't remember features off the top of my head, but the intro.
It was the one that introed with Jaina.
Yeah, no, let's ignore that one. I don't really call that a cinematic, call that a trailer.
Fair enough.
But the cinematic where they're attacking Lordaeron.
Yeah.
So what I want to ask is, who do you think struck first? Do you think they attacked Lordaeron first, or do you think the Horde attacked Teldrassil?
So, they basically, I think, straight out said that Teldrassil was attacked first. Actually, I think that's covered in Before the Storm, though, which is the book that Christy Golden's writing.
Okay, because everything that they said on stage said, you'll have to find out sometime.
Yeah, I think it's kind of implied, though, that Teldrassil happened first. I mean, that might just be my Alliance bias, but...
True, I mean, I'll give it that bias, too, but I could also...
See, what I'm currently speculating from my own end is that it wasn't necessarily the Horde that attacked it. It could be something like a Wrathgate type thing with the Desolate Council. Okay. With the Desolate Council initiating the attack on Teldrassil.
Okay, and then the Alliance just blames the Horde, so they attack Lordaeron.
Yeah. Are you familiar with who the Desolate Council is?
Off the top of my head, no.
They're basically like a quasi-official ruling body of Undercity that kind of emerged when Sylvanas left to become War Chief.
Oh, okay.
Like, they're not officially leading the Undercity, but they kind of just filled that power vacuum.
Is Sylvanas' like in-game character model? Her in-game character model still in uh, Undercity, isn't it? It's not. They didn't move her to Orgrimmar when she became war chief.
I'm not sure about that. I just know what I've heard off of the internet, basically.
Okay. Because one theory I would entertain would be the Alliance struck first, only because we know how pissed off Gen is.
Oh yeah, Gen would totally do that.
So I would completely buy that Gen attacked first.
The thing is with the way the intro cinematic is set up, I think he would have to convince Anduin to attack, because I don't think Anduin would go if he felt it wasn't justified.
True, but I mean, Gen is a practiced, hot-headed politician.
That's fair.
He could spin it, especially with. I mean, okay, Anduin's older now, but
See, what I could also see is I could really just see Gen really taking the bait of burning Teldrassil and just charging in and just like I could really see that being a possibility too.
mm,
And I honestly see that a little bit more likely.
I think either way, the reason that Lordaeron was the choice of attack was Gen's choice, regardless of it's
Yeah.
because of Teldrassil being burned or because he was still pissed off about Varian.
Well, I think it's kind of a twofold choice because Lordaeron was actually originally the seat of the Alliance, so it also has a lot of symbolic value to the Alliance as well.
Right, which he could use to leverage Anduin to going forward.
And that also has the side benefit of ending the Forsaken incursion into Gilneas, which is why he would really push for that.
Yes, because then he gets his city back.
It's both practical and symbolic for him, so...
Mm-hmm. So the Anduin armor looked awesome. Also, Anduin is so much more of a badass than when you first
Oh,
became.
Anduin is kind of like a whiny, mopey bitch when you first met him, like, hands down.
Well, okay, like
But, like,
let's
it's justified.
ignore like the first time you see him, like when he's a kid in what was it, Vanilla, I think.
I mean, I'm ignoring Vanilla. I'm basically considering, like, Katamop onwards.
Okay, because Kata is when he started to be, or sorry, Mop is when he started to become a character in and of
He became
himself.
much more of a central character in Mop. That's for sure.
He was that neutral guy along with Thrall and Mop about, there's some bad shit.
Very much so, let's, like, work together to deal with this bad shit.
Yeah, I know you guys don't like each other. You can do that later, but this is a problem. We need to fix this.
Yeah. And, like, I can see, like, I definitely liked his character evolution, especially with the Lost Memento quest. I think that kind of helps, like, sell him as a character.
Oh, when you go and find his dad's what?
Where you bring the compass to him, and then there's a quest chain that's involved with that.
Yeah. I really like that, and then he shows up in front of
The cathedral.
Yeah, but I'm blanking on the name of the raid.
The Tomb of Sargeras.
Thank you.
Or, as I like to call it, the Tomb of Soak Garrus.
I mean, we have just been playing World of Soakcraft.
That's true.
This entire expansion is World of Soakcraft.
It really has been.
Thank you, Preach. I'm stealing that phrase. I'm sorry.
It is a good one.
It is. All right, so then after that, let's move on and we'll talk about the two islands. So, kul'tiras.
Yep, what about kul'tiras?
3 zones. I really like the overworld map of the three zones looks really nice to me. I think that's cool.
I'm not to be honest, I'm not 100% sold on the 3 zone thing. I
You
I
were.
just because like personally, like I'm used to the whole traditional. You have like 4 or 5 zones. What I think they've been doing based off what I saw in the demo is they might be splitting the zones into subzones that are like 3 or so zones each. So instead, it feels like you're it still feels like you're on that treadmill a little bit, like as you were saying earlier with the whole rewards thing,
Hmm. So
the reward cycle.
I see that, but there's also when I leveled my character, my druid from 100 to 110, I was max level at the end of before I finished the third zone.
Were you doing dungeons as well?
Only the quest ones.
That's weird because you started at 100. That could be it. Because my shaman, I leveled him up, and I only got to about like 108, questing through all 4 zones. I didn't really do any of the side quests though, and that could be part of it.
See, I was completing the full storyline, so I got the achievement because I knew that was going to be tied to flying eventually. And
Yeah,
then
I did the full storyline and then moved on.
no, see, because I kept wandering around, I would trigger like little tiny like 5 quest chains, so I would go do those.
Like I would basically do any like main quest and then any quest in the area associated with it. That was more of like a quest in the area that you could additionally complete. I didn't really go off and do any of the side quests, like the whole like in Azuna that's basically like 50% side quest, and like the wine one. I didn't do any of that type of stuff.
Hmm. No, I did the wine one. I remember the wine one.
But like all of that, I just skipped on my shaman. So
I mean, it was really cool to do it once, but I don't know if it would be interesting to do again.
yeah, it's kind of like I personally don't really like how they designed Azuna. It feels like you only do half of the zone and then you're encouraged to move on because of how short the story quest is.
I just
And
don't.
then on top of that, it's just the quest line in it is also very like set like it's not very cohesive as a story in and of itself. Because you start out by going to the demon hunter part, and you go and do quests for a bit, and then you're done with demons, and you go on and you help the dragons, and then once you're done helping the dragons, you help the ghost elves for a while, and then once you're done helping the ghost elves, you go deal with like, um, like sea giants and like
Hmm.
pirates and things like that. And it just as a whole, the zone itself, the storyline lacks cohesion, so I don't like it for that.
I understand. I just didn't like the zone in general. Like that is a part of it that now that you bring it up, I don't think I enjoyed either. But
Like I liked the way the zone looked. It's a pretty zone in the right
right,
parts. Like the beaches aren't as pretty, but like the zone itself is pretty, and it just I feel like they might have originally had more plans for Azuna, but they had to scrap them.
see, I don't really think it's that pretty because I spent most of the time thinking it's just super murky in
Yeah,
comparison to
a lot of the coast is very murky, I feel.
something like the coasts in not Stormheim.
High Mountain.
No, it is Stormheim. I'm sorry. Yeah, in Stormheim, the coasts in Stormheim were gorgeous.
I kind of like the whole fjordy like cliff looks.
Hmm.
I thought that was gorgeous.
Stormheim really hit home to me mostly because of my heritage.
See, I like Stormheim because the story's very cohesive in it. Like you start out doing a lot of, alliance stuff, but you kind of like pack that in and you go through the zone and it weaves back in at the end when you're doing penultimate um, quest chain where you're dealing with Sylvanas and the Valkyr.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway,
I think they did a very good job of weaving in the alliance and horde conflict
yeah,
into the zone
I think it does. I think
in
it's.
a way that they failed to like tie in everything else in Azuna to the Azuna quest line.
I think it strikes that balance almost perfectly. and I really hope that's something
I agree.
I really hope that's something we see moving forward, because as they talked about in the conference, primarily you're going to be doing your leveling on your island, but the war campaign is going to be prevalent, and I really hope it's not something like the garrison campaign where you just kind of were trudging along and you got this message that said, "Hey, come back, we're going to do something." It's more baked in.
Yeah. Well, part of
Which
the war campaign, I think, is also going to have you go to the other continent. So if you're Alliance, you'll go to Zandalar, and vice versa for Horde.
right.
So, like, and you're essentially going to be establishing outposts. And I think that could be interesting, and it will also kind of help change up the feel because, like, you basically have jungle and you have like mountain forest with a little bit of variance in there, but you know,
Hmm.
being able to go and see the other part at least for a little bit, I think would be a nice, like, you know, breath of fresh air.
Right, but I don't want them to, completely break the story to say, "Hey, we're going to go set up an outpost now."
Yeah,
Completely
that's not a good idea.
completely drop what you're doing, because that's something I think we're losing with zone order choice. Because don't get me wrong, I love the flexibility
I
of
like
that.
the idea of being able to choose which zone you do first, but at the same time,
Hmm.
like you essentially go, you branch out, and you're not really able to insert any sort of narrative structure within that in a cohesive fashion.
Right. It just it kind
Like
of
you finish X, oh, you go and do this thing, and it might feel kind of random, and then you
mm-hmm,
finish Y. And I think that's part of why the war campaign is going to involve putting outposts on the other continent. I'm hoping at least that it's going to happen in between zones. So like you finish up Drustvar and you go back and you get your war campaign quest. You go and you start establishing these outposts, and then you come back and you're like, oh hey, this zone now needs our help, so let's go to like Kierkegaard Sound and so forth.
mm-hmm. Right. So I actually want to skip kul'tiras and talk about that second. I want to talk about Zandalar.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Um, First off, Zandalar, they didn't talk about them at all, but they showed a picture of Tortolans, and Tortolans are adorable,
They are very adorable.
and I want them. I want them to be my friends.
Fun fact: in the Freehold dungeon, which you haven't gotten a chance to see yet, they do have a Tortolan boss.
I don't want to fight
I'm
them.
pretty
I
sure.
want them to be my friend. I want I want a Tortolan pet.
Did you see the Volteras?
Yes, those are also adorable.
They're very adorable. They're
Um,
very like anime-ish to me. They're like a very Final Fantasy thing to me, though.
yeah, but that doesn't bother me mostly because I love JRPGs and that sort of thing. So, but I mean, I can totally
I'm not
understand.
saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it is a thing that typically happens in those style of games.
True, true. 1 second. There we go. Okay. So
Less.
I never thought of the Zandalari trolls as seafarers. Cause
I mean, you could kind of see it though in Mists of Pandaria.
okay, yeah,
Because remember, they did travel to Mists on those big boats and like at the Throne of Thunder
all right, I will.
and like throughout.
I totally buy that. Just never thought of him like
Like
that.
you kind of know that they're like an island nation. Like the fact that they had a navy, I feel wasn't really expounded upon very much. I feel like that's kind of like a we need to balance out kul'tiras giving the alliance a huge navy, so we'll just retcon that in.
Right,
But like it's plausible that they have a big navy.
right. Because I mean,
Navy, I guess.
trolls are very. The troll culture in general seems to fit having a navy, not like like super advanced tech navy, but like the Dark Spear or an island uh, culture. So I mean, you would
Yeah,
expect that they would have a navy. It just never like something that bore into my mind.
It's not something that like struck me that they have one of the most powerful navies in the world.
Well,
I think that's kind of a weird, you know.
right, especially after you're doing, you did Zul'Gurub, Zul'Farak, and all the other Zuls, Zulaman, Zuldrak.
Yeah, it's just like they're all of those are like landlocked troll tribes though, so like you don't really get the whole seafarer vibe because like if you're stuck in Zul'Gurub without a large amount of access to water, you're not going to have a whole bunch of seafaring technology.
But I mean, that's the majority of what we've seen, because if I recall correctly, Zul'Gurub was Zandalari.
I mean, they had some ties to Zandalar, but it wasn't like super strong. Like there was that small island off the coast of Stranglethorn that was Zandalari, but there was like there's a connection with them, and like especially in was it Kata when they revamped the dungeons?
When they revamped them from raids to dungeons, yeah.
Yeah. You started to see their presence in there a lot more. So.
Right, and that was like that's most people's at least major experience with them is through those revamped dungeons.
Yeah, I think originally in vanilla though they were neutral faction. I'm not sure if you could get rep with them or not, but they were there.
Okay. All right.
I think the reason why we see them in the Kata dungeons is because Kata really messed with Zandalar, as is stated in the cinematic at some points. I think not the cinematic, but the in the the videos.
Yeah.
The BlizzCon panels.
So
particularly with Nazmir.
Mm-hmm. So Zandalar as an island in of itself is the most diverse climates I've ever seen on an island.
Yeah, they have some interesting choices there.
So we've got our desert up here, we've got our swamp, and then we got our jungly forest area.
See, you could plausibly have a desert on an island as long as you have like a mountain to rain shadow it.
True, and
the ocean currents are traveling the wrong way.
True, I mean, at least they give us a reason why it's a desert now, as opposed to it being the forest it used to be.
Yeah.
But still, you just look at it, you're like, this doesn't make sense. Why is there a swamp next to my desert? Because those are just two so very...
They're very opposite climates in a lot of ways.
We got one of them.
I think they basically said that it is magically induced though, so that does make sense.
Mm-hmm. So Vol'dun, the desert area, when they were describing, they're like, "This is where we throw our criminals." I'm like, "Okay, so we've made Australia."
Basically, yeah. This is Troll Australia.
Troll Australia.
Troll Australia.
There we go. I'm going to call it that from now on. The Volpera are awesome, adorable, and they're just cool.
Goblins 2.0.
Goblins, but better. Because I really don't like goblins that much.
They're basically goblins, but better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm calling this now. They're totally joining the Horde as an allied race.
Dude, I'm
totally calling it.
Volpera.
I see that as a thing.
Volpera Mage. Just
Volpera Rogue. Outlaw Volpera Rogue.
As long as I'm wearing an eye patch, heck yes. The Sethrak, the snake people, seem like they're gonna be a cool enemy in the zone.
See, I'm predicting that they're going to have a lot of old god influence. I have a feeling that they're going to be linked to that old god that was mentioned, that corrupted Vol'dun.
Mm-hmm. Was it an old?
Or rather, the minions. It was just minions, I think, technically, is what they said.
Yeah, I think they said they're the Akari? Something like that?
I'm not sure exactly what they're called. I would have to go back and watch, but I'm pretty sure in some way, shape, or form they are related to those.
They are the minions of the old gods. or of an old god.
I feel like they're the servants of those minions, because like I feel like the minions that were mentioned are more like Herald on Kahet, and these are the servants of those essentially like Herald like creatures.
Okay. Um. So I wonder if these are what I'm gonna go out on a limb.
The reason why I think that is because in the Nazmir Zone demo, they did mention that like there was a Sethrak incursion and they're turning it to desert. That part of Nazmir.
Well, that's nasty.
So that's why I think they're servants of the old gods.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, you were starting to transition. I just wanted to throw that in there.
I wasn't transitioning per se, but so Sethraks, they're the snake people, and if I recall correctly, I could be remembering this completely wrong. But Vol'jin's totems, didn't they have like the little floaty snake head?
They were like fire snake things originally, I think.
Yeah. Or do you think that they might be Sethrak might be almost Loa-y, kinda, or derived from
I don't think so.
us like snake Loa?
I don't think so. I think that they're. I don't think that they're derived from Alola per se. They might be. That's plausible. But I think they're really just the servants of those old gods.
Okay. Last thing I wanted to say about Vol'dun was that those hippos are awesome.
I think Vol'dun will be an interesting zone to play through.
I definitely think, based on what they said, it's the if you want to play it canonically, Vol'dun is what you're supposed to play last.
Yeah. That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, and then before that, you're supposed to play Nazmir, which heavily filled with Loa.
I'm just kind of interested. Like, I think it's interesting that they have a canonical version, and I think they kind of showed that in BlizzCon. Like, I think that the order they told you about each zone is their quote canonical unquote order. So like the Troll City zone is the first one, then Nazmir, then Vol'dun, and same with Alliance. The Tiragard Sound followed by Drustvar, followed by Stormsong.
Yeah, that would make sense to me. But Loa,
which personally to me is kind of interesting, considering that they're trying to do the whole you can choose whichever one you want to go to.
Yeah, but I mean they did the same thing in Legion.
That's fair. I find
order to that.
What's your opinion of the canonical order, or what did they say is the canonical order? Because I don't think I ever heard about that. I joined the Legion game a little late.
I almost want to say it was left to right as you look at the zone maps.
That would make sense to me.
I want to say it was Azuna.
Because Khadgar sends you to Azuna.
Yeah, I think it might be
Khadgar's there in Azuna.
I want to say it's Azuna, then I can't remember the name of that zone.
Al-Shara.
Yes, I just want to call it the Emerald Nightmare area. Followed by
one of my friends always confuses Vol Shara with Vashir.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh,
I'm like they're not the same thing. They do have very similar names, but
Vol'Shara is 100 times better than Vashir. I don't want to kill myself when I do a quest in Vol'Shara.
So I just leveled my shaman recently, and the resto artifact is all in Vashir, and I'm like, kill me now. I did it because I wanted the artifact, but it was like, why?
Because restoration is water.
Yeah, I know. It was just annoying.
You just have to make sure you do the, like 5 first quests in Vashir so you get water breathing.
He grants it to you automatically, actually.
Oh, thank God.
It's not that awful.
But then you go High Mountain, then Stormheim, because Stormheim I can almost guarantee is the climax.
Yeah, I could see that. I could also see Stormheim as the first zone.
Right.
Like, in the way they currently have it iterated, I think it makes sense as the last zone.
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
But I think in the design process, it could have also been the first zone, like, in their minds, because you have the Horde versus Alliance conflict, and that's typically at the start of zones, or at the start of expansions is when you start to see that erupting, and not so much at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, by the way, one of my cats is being obnoxious.
That's okay. Not as obnoxious as Bruce's. So
He's like, pay attention to me, and I'm like, no.
that's what they all do. So excited. Since I'm a mount collector, frog mount sounds freaking
The
awesome.
frog mount, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, just as they showed more and more of Nazmir, yeah.
I feel like Blizzard kind of has a hard on for Nazmir.
See, and I looked at him like,
I'm not a big fan of it. Like, so people are like, Blizzard has a total Horde bias, like they are so like for the Alliance, and I'm like, actually no. Like I feel like they've given Zandalar a lot more love and attention in a lot of ways than kul'tiras, and like Nazmir has the raid. It's like in the videos they spend like 20 minutes playing through Drustvar, whereas they spend like 30 minutes playing through Nazmir. I feel like they've invested a lot more into Zandalar at this point than they have kul'tiras, and like I feel like there are a lot of counterpoints to the Horde bias versus the Alliance bias, and like let's not go down that road, people.
there are people on both sides everywhere. We're just not gonna. It's a silly argument to get into.
Yeah.
When I saw Nazmir, I just kind of spent most of it going, this looks a lot like Zul'Drak, which is a zone I freaking hate.
Is Zul'Drak the one in Northrend?
Yes. It's the undead zombie troll stuff.
Yeah, zombie troll.
Yeah, which I just freaking hate.
Blood trolls, though.
So I'm excited that we're getting a raid. Troll raid, which is neat.
The raid's actually not a troll raid, it's a Titan raid.
Well, but it's... Okay, yes, it is. It takes place in a Titan location, but most of the enemies are trolls themed because they took it over from... At least that's what I gathered from what I've seen.
They haven't really talked about it that much.
Well, because something...
I think it's going to be heavily involved in the Blood Troll story, though.
Because I think the blood trolls
I think that's going to be a thing.
Like,
they are trolls. I feel like they're trolls with a lot of old god influence, which is why they do the whole like blood corrupty ritual type things that summon those little like weird, disgusting creatures.
Mm-hmm. I just think that it's...
And like,
I think it's going to be the old god facility, or not, sorry, Titan facility, that's just been overrun by these blood trolls.
yeah, it's a quarantine facility for the that the Titans made to do experiments on.
Yeah.
To do experiments on the old gods, so I feel like the blood trolls have kind of maybe overrun it, and they've done a lot of experiments. And like they showed you a boss, if you looked at it,
the big worm,
the big worm thing. Like it really actually reminds me of those little creatures that they're making out in Nazmir. It reminds me a lot of those, just maybe evolved a whole bunch more,
right?
Like empowered a whole bunch more.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like it's plausible that the blood trolls have a large presence in it.
Yeah, I would assume the last
and
boss is
maybe it's the reason why they're blood trolls now instead of Zandalari.
Right. They could be a broken off faction sect, whatever you want to use.
They're like They're like Zandalari trolls that were like corrupted by the old gods or something.
Though if I remember looking at their models, they looked more like Darkspear.
Well, that goes, I feel, hand in hand with corruption, troll corruption. You know, like the Zandalari like they got corrupted by the old gods because that tends to do a lot of like physical disfigurement in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be that.
They worship the blood
That's kind of
god Gahuna.
that's kind of my idea. Like I think that they've been corrupted by the old gods, and that's why you see them.
Their origin is similar to that of sand trolls in the sense that the Great Sundering changed the environment they lived in. They had to adapt.
Yeah. Except in this case, it was the Cataclysm.
Well, no, it says Great Sundering.
Where are you reading this?
Wowpedia.
Gahoon. That sounds like a name we haven't heard before.
So that's supposed to be imprison. Oh, it's the implosion of the Well of Eternity. Derp.
Yeah, I just don't know where the blood trolls really originated from.
Well, I'm assuming that, well, like they said, I think they come from the same place, but...
Anyways,
Yeah, whatever.
Queen Azshara announced as a boss in this expansion. How do you feel about that?
Whew! I'm excited to see where she comes in, because Ian contradicted himself when he talked about her.
How so?
Um, so he said she'll be the boss of the next raid, and he said she'll be at the end of the expansion, or something along those lines.
I think they maybe don't really know where they're placing her yet.
I feel like they're like this expansion. I'm skipping ahead a lot. I don't think
We've kind of been bouncing around, so
I think this expansion is coming a lot later than you and I talked about last time. I think it's a lot.
When do you think it's coming?
Well, last time we talked about early summer or
Yeah.
late spring. I think.
When do you think it's coming now?
I think at the earliest we're talking August.
I could see August.
I think their lack of answers to the numbers and exact powers that they have on Azeroth is a major
They just, I feel like they haven't really, like if you look at all of the features they've announced, they're rather scarce on the details. Like for all of the new things, like Heart of Azeroth, they don't have a lot of details on.
Well,
Warfronts, they don't have a lot of details on. Island Expeditions, they don't have like a whole bunch of details on.
They can tell you exactly how each of those things work, and I like how most of those sound. They just don't have the numbers.
Yeah, and they don't have the details.
Numbers are a lot of things that need to be tweaked, and you can't launch with bad numbers. Otherwise, you have problems like Legion, where, for instance, bear tanks were broken for the entire expansion. Even when you removed all of the
Earthhog thing,
the Mark of Ursal, so you had no magic reduction, but you still had 4 other buttons that had damage reduction in them.
So you haven't really seen anything. Have you watched any of the Preach videos about Battle for Azeroth?
Oh yeah, I watched them all.
So you saw the tanking one, right?
Yeah.
Where he talks about tanking. I think it's kind of interesting how they're moving to an armor approach versus a damage reduction approach.
I'm interested, but at the same time, I'm scared beyond belief.
It could be really good or it could be really bad. It just depends.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think it's interesting. I want to see what they do with it before I pass judgment on it, because it could honestly go either way.
Mm-hmm. I
Anyways,
okay.
let's circle back to maybe Troll to Zandalar, since we've kind of been bouncing all over the
Okay.
place.
We'll get back to this later.
Yeah,
So then the last zone on Zandalar is Zoldazar, which is
that's the name of the city,
yes,
Zuldazar.
that's not a mouthful at all. So first off, I love Zandalar architecture. It's very much Aztec inspired.
Yeah, it's very Mayan and Aztec inspired. They
So
literally went and said that in the art panel.
in case you couldn't
So
tell,
they like flat out said, like, we use a lot of Mayan and Aztec inspirations in it. So
no,
it's like,
really,
wow, really? I do like the whole gold aesthetic. I do like the Mayan aesthetic. I just, it's just not my personal cup of tea. I think it's pretty, but
so here's my new question. So we've been experiencing a lot recently, particularly in games, people not getting mad, and rightfully so, but pointing out points of cultural appropriation, right? You follow
yeah.
me? And like, I mean, you should be annoyed about this. This is, your culture if they're not doing it justice or they're using it in a way that doesn't make sense. Of course, you should be mad about that.
See, the way I see Blizzard using, like, I see them using Aztec and Mayan art and design as an inspiration. I don't see them like using it to appropriate the culture. I don't see the appropriation of the culture, and like saying, we like this design, we feel it portrays what we're trying to portray, and so we're going to use it. I like, it might be like cultural appropriation if, say, it's using designs that have some sort of religious significance
Mm-hmm.
that Blizzard doesn't know about, but just saying, we love the way this art looks and we really think it fits in with this, so we're going to base a lot of the art for this off on that. I don't think that's personal, or I personally don't feel that's cultural appropriation.
True, but that's exactly what I'm saying. What if there is something? I mean, obviously, either a descendant of that culture or
And honestly, like, I don't think we're the right people to be talking about cultural appropriation in the first place. Like, I feel like we're not necessarily qualified to make that call, whether it is or not, because
mm-hmm.
we're both white dudes.
I mean, we can talk about cultural appropriation. I can't tell you whether what they're doing is or isn't off the top of my head.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't have the history training in or the anthropology training in Aztec and Mayan culture to tell you anything. It's something that could be,
Like,
and if there and it's
I could see it being considered cultural appropriation. I personally don't view it as such.
if somebody gets mad or not, mad is not the right word. If somebody views it as that, I don't think
We
we
shouldn't shut down that conversation, because I
exactly.
think that's a conversation we should have with that person. But from my perspective, I don't necessarily see it as cultural appropriation.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also the fact that we've only seen glimpses and we haven't seen everything. So
Right. So that's a conversation I could see happening in the next year after the game launches.
yeah, I could see that. I can't remember if it was a big conversation in MOP though.
I don't think cultural appropriation was a big topic in general back in 2012.
It kind of was if you were in the right circles, but
It
I feel
wasn't.
like it's definitely a lot more out in the open nowadays.
It wasn't as big of a more
The
open.
average person wouldn't care about it.
It's not as big of an open phenomenon, I guess, for lack of a better term. Uh, but I mean, it's a tough conversation that I picture could happen. It might
Yeah,
not. It could. It couldn't. Who knows? So, kul'tiras
I do like the aesthetic of their building. I do really like that oxidized green roof. Bellular was talking about it, and he said that he thought it was too brown and like kind of murky and dull.
I
But I
actually
think it
like that.
fits. I think it fits culture and society. Like
Hmm.
I think in its own way, it's very pretty. I think like the coloring itself might not be pretty, except for that oxidized green, which is beautiful.
Though I could totally understand somebody saying, this is not
This is grimy and not aesthetically
this
pleasing
is
to me. I
not
can
what I
understand
want.
that. Like I can understand why people wouldn't think it's pretty. I think it's appropriate.
Hmm. Um, we've got
I
some.
like the aesthetic it's trying to send.
Oh yeah, no, it's very Port Royal. Like first off, that music that they had playing when they showed off.
Oh, I love their music.
Like, when they showed it off, I was like, "This is awesome." I also wanted to start
The
playing.
Tear Guard sound music that was.
I also wanted to start playing Pirates of the Caribbean at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
um, they showed Jaina's mom, which man, does she look old? Um,
I mean, she's like 60 in universe.
I'm not blaming her for looking old. I'm just saying she looks pretty old. Um, I wonder if she's also a mage or if she's just a pirate or what she is.
I don't think she's a mage.
She more of a? Are you thinking she might be more of a rogue or?
I think she's more of like a fighter rogue type character.
Okay.
I could see her being either of those. I don't really like peg her as a mage, mostly because like in a lot of the old lore, her mother would be mentioned as a powerful mage if she was a powerful mage, and she's not referred to that way. So
The four rulings.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I highly doubt that I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I just was curious.
See, what's interesting to me is they said 4 ruling houses, but we only hear about 3.
Yeah, that's a thought.
That's kind of interesting to me. I kind of wonder why that is.
Maybe they haven't designed that.
And I feel like they gave us a hint to that in the Freehold dungeon. They were talking about the last boss, who is basically WoW Wario. If you look at him, he's basically WoW Wario. But basically, he's bankrolled. He's bankrolled by this like lady person. So I think that maybe she's part of the 4th house and is also the big bad.
Or is he the 4th house?
No, he's not. They literally said he's bankrolled by this person who's a lord/lady, and they're the big bad of kul'tiras.
Okay.
So
we got the Proudmoores. They're one family.
the Waycrests and Drustvar.
Yes, which, oh boy, do they have some ghost problems there. Whew.
I think I'm kind of excited for Drustvar. I do really like the aesthetic.
That like banshee concept art they showed.
I really like the whole death magic thing.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
So the thing with yeah, I know, right? I'm such an edgelord. The thing with Drustvar is that they have the witches, and the witches are essentially the focus of the zone. And they talk about this a little bit more in the video, I think. But originally, it was supposed to be like this cold, mountainous place with the witches as like a side plot type thing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really working, so they made it the actual plot. And like, I think the death magic, I think it really works. I like that. That blue, almost like Lich King, Valkyr-esque type blue mixed with the black ashes.
Mm-hmm.
I think it really works.
Speaking of that, so they showed these creatures off in Drustvar, and I want to say it was Nezmir. Those like tree creatures,
The wicker creation golem things.
Yeah, they had the golems, but they also had the almost like fellhounds with the tree horns.
So the wicker hounds?
Yeah. I didn't see
That's probably not what they're called, but that's what they look like.
Okay, but I love that. I love that design. I think those are going to be some really cool
It's a gorgeous design.
Um, get a hunter in there, get a wicker hound as your pet.
I'm kind of curious to see if they'll allow that. I think they won't because it's not technically a beast. It's
Is
like
it or is
maybe an
it?
elemental or a construct.
That's
I don't think it is. I think it would be like an elemental or a construct type thing.
But so that's probably going to lead into a similar to what you have now with the spirit beasts. Probably like a few like special ones that you could get.
It could be. I'm not sure though. That's a who knows.
That'd be cool.
That's a launch question, not a now question.
Mm-hmm. So the last thing we haven't talked about is Storm Song on kul'tiras.
It's so gorgeous. I love it.
It reminded me a
I
lot.
want to go on quest there.
It reminded me a lot of the zone on Pandaria with that Stormstout brewery's in.
Valley of the Four Winds.
Is it Valley?
I think so.
Yes, because it's also the same.
Valley of the Four Winds. Vale of the Eternal Blossom. Good job, Blizzard.
It's Valley of the Four Winds because that's
Yeah,
the same place
it's Valley.
as the
That's where Halfhill is.
yeah, the farm.
Oh, the farm.
Hey, you got some neat stuff out of that.
We got garrisons out of that.
Okay. I'm gonna say this. The farm was better than garrisons.
Oh, it was, definitely. So much less work to do.
then the ruling family in Stormsong, I'm blanking on.
I think there's Storm Song. I think that's just what they're called, is Storm Song.
And they've also got sea priests.
Yes, the Sea Priests. I think it's going to be interesting. They have a lot of Kraken motifs there.
Oh, yeah.
The level design, or not the level design, the boss design was talking about it, and I think it's going to be gorgeous.
So
I think it's going to be a good time.
Next, we move into character stories.
I think it's a good idea to focus on character stories. I think that's really where the good story comes out, is just through the interplay of characters.
Mm.
I think that's why so many people loved Firefly and thought it was a good story, because the plot wasn't as important as the relationship between the characters.
That's also the driving thing behind the Persona games, because it's all about it's not about the dungeoning, it's about how you decide to spend your time with what character's relationship means something to you. Who do you want to know more about?
Yeah.
So Sylvanas and Anduin, they're going to be, probably your two mainstays. Who's your good guy?
So I think it's kind of curious who they picked to display for the character stories. They had Anduin and Sylvanas, who I feel are going to be the... So there are four. There's Thrall, Sylvanas, Anduin, and Jaina.
Let's just start with Sylvanas and Anduin. We'll move to the other two in a minute.
Okay.
So Sylvanas and Anduin, you're gonna be good and bad. They're both that edge of flexible. We can have a conversation, but there are some other driving forces that would prevent them from settling things. For instance, Gen is going to be that ear, or that mouth to Anduin's ear, that's going to stop him from trying to resolve major issues. And Sylvanas, I don't know if there's an ear on her or a mouth on her side that's going to stop her, but there's primarily going to be her hatred of the void with the Valeera.
Or do you mean Illyria?
Yes, Valeera is the rogue.
Valeera is the Silver Covenant rogue.
Yeah, that's Sanguinar, not.
I mean, there is also a Valeera Windrunner, but that's less important.
Yeah, the other sister.
Yeah.
Isn't it Valeria?
See, I think that those two are going to be the driving characters of the war campaign. Illyria is the Void Elf who we see in the Vindicar. Valeera is her younger sister.
Right. I am significantly less interested in Sylvanas and Anduin though than the other two.
I think that it'll be interesting. I think that they're just going to be the driving forces behind the war campaign, and I don't think that they're going to have much to do with the new continents. I think personally that the characters we'll be focusing on in Zandalar and kul'tiras will be Thrall and Jaina respectively.
hmm The interesting
I
part
think
is
that
so Thrall is the major. I am the neutral guy. I am the Drake. I'm a new
he's
aspect.
Green Jesus.
He's Green Jesus. This is true. But he's the Earth. He's the new Earth Warder. I say new as in 3 expansions ago.
Yeah.
Um,
He's new in that he replaced Neltharion.
yes. But the point is, he's actually more of a neutral guy. Whereas
Yeah,
Jane,
I think it's kind of interesting how he's kind of withdrawn from the Horde recently, and he's more like doing his own thing.
well,
Because
he's
like you
also
see him a little bit at the start of Legion, but then like nothing.
right, but he's also been a major player in the
I
Earth and Ring.
Yeah, like he's involved in the Shaman campaign, but he doesn't really do much there.
Apart from
I
being
feel like
the
he's
Super
kind
Shaman.
of yeah. Well, like I mean, he loses Doomhammer, so that's how you get Doomhammer is it flies out of his hand and you have to go recover it. Spoilers. But
Yeah, so yeah.
but basically, like I feel like he's kind of essentially I think trying to process what happened in Warlords of Draenor, like in Legion. I think that's really what's happening, and like maybe he's like I think right now he's at this point where he's fighting with himself, and I think maybe we'll see some of that. Like I think like they talked a lot about how Jaina is a damaged character. I think Thrall is also damaged based off what happened with him with Garrosh.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and or yeah, it is Garrosh, right? Yeah.
Garrosh has
Um,
the evil orc.
I can't remember, like I was thinking of his father for some reason, and that's
Gromash.
Gromash, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
Gromash is his
but
father, who is the guy who
like
originally drinks the
I think that
blood.
Thrall is trying to deal with in his own way his regrets between those two and kind of driving a lot of the stuff that happened with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like because like I mean he was really close with Garrosh's father Grom, and then like he was there when Grom died, and like that kind of spurred him to take Garrosh under his wing, and like I feel like he might have a lot of regrets around that, and he's trying to work through that
Especially when
right
Thrall is the
now.
one who actually had to kill Garrosh.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be like I think that's a large part of why Thrall isn't like powerful right now is because he's trying to deal with that, and while he's dealing with that, he can't be the super powerful shaman Earth Warder person.
Mm-hmm. I think that Thrall is the most interesting of the 4 characters they talked about.
Yeah, I'm also kind of curious to see what they do with Jaina.
Jaina is again. So Jaina was originally more of a neutral person. She was the leader of the Kirin Tor.
Yeah, she was a neutral person, and then she got PTSD from the Horde nuking Theramore.
Yeah, Horde nuking Theramorn,
Theramore.
Theramore, and then her sexy warrior guy got killed. So she's a bit pissed about that. She's just become significantly more alliance than she ever was before.
I'm just I don't know how close she was with Varian because, like, yeah, she interacted with him, and yeah, she was like his voice of reason throughout Wrath. In case you don't remember that, um, but like she's slowly been shifting away from that, and like I don't know if we're going to see a return to the old Jaina
They're
where it's a
just
little bit more like measured, or if we're going to like you know
I think we're gonna get more of a primal instinct Jaina as we move forward.
I just am curious to see what they do with her.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and there's also the fact that like Jaina and Thrall have been characters since Warcraft 3, which was released 15 years ago. So like I've known both of these characters for 15 years, and like you know there's attachment to them.
Mm-hmm. I don't think any of
And
them are going away.
I'm also like a lot more of an alliance person, so like I feel that connection more with Jaina than I do with Thrall. So that's why I feel I'm more curious about her story.
See, and I've always been an alliance person since I started playing, but I just find Thrall to be significantly more interesting.
I feel like Thrall as a character hasn't really evolved that much, whereas Jaina has been, and you've been like able to clearly see that.
See, and I don't really consider.
And I think that's why I'm more curious about Jaina.
I don't think what Jaina's been doing is evolving. I think it's more Jaina doesn't. Jaina just keeps bouncing back and forth. She's like a pinball right now.
She's reacting.
Yeah, but I don't know if I'd call that progression.
Yeah. That's kind of why I'm curious. I want to see where she ends up through this process of trying to discover how she feels.
I do want to know about this whole Vol'jin thing that's been hinted at, though.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about
With
that.
the fact that Thrall's carrying Vol'jin around on his hip. Did you hear about that?
I did. I remember that with the whole urn thing.
Yes. Yeah, the 4 characters that you got.
And then Ian's little joke about that. Ian's little joke about how I told you we'd come back to Vol'jin.
Mm-hmm. He's on Thrall's hip, you know. It's cool.
Just no big deal. I wonder if Thrall has a lot of regrets around Vol'jin. That's kind of what I'm curious about, because you know he was kind of a big pusher for Vol'jin, and like he was kind of the reason why Vol'jin joined the Horde.
Yeah, and Thrall's
so in
also,
a way, he's kind of a little responsible for his death.
Thrall's also the guy who's like, "Hey, you're in charge," and like nobody argued with him.
Yeah.
If you have saw the end of the Final Mists cinematic.
Yeah, I did. It's been a while though, so
basically,
like you know, years.
Vol'jin, you're in charge. I'll follow you if you lead.
And well, I mean, but you know, going back, Thrall is like green Jesus to the Horde. You know, like they're not going to stand against Thrall because you know the new Horde is 100% Thrall's thing.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one that created it.
Right, and then just started putting people in charge who keep dying or going evil. And now we have Sylvanas.
Yeah.
We don't know how we feel about her right now.
But yeah, I'm just kind of really just curious about how he feels about Vol'jin, given you know what happened.
Mm-hmm. I wonder how he feels about Sylvanas being in charge.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing to talk about too. I don't know how Thrall would feel about that. I presume he's okay with it because you know he hasn't really said anything about it yet.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad we're getting world quests and emissaries continuing. I think that's a really I think it's a really good system.
Yeah, I think it's a good system. I just wish it were a little more dynamic.
I think they kind of screwed it over with the Nightborn.
Oh, the Nightborn.
I just think they screwed it over a little bit there.
I did like the zone. I think Suramar is a great zone.
Mm-hmm. It was just too rep-gated.
There was a lot of rep gating and not a lot of rep.
If there was a way to get more faster, I wouldn't have mind.
It kind of reminds me of the whole Missa Pandaria Golden Lotus rep finding or rep grinding.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me a lot of that because it's basically what it was in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Get tiny amounts of rep to like incrementally increase the story, and like I get that they want to release it piecemeal. They don't want you experiencing it all at once. They want it to be kind of like a progression, but at the same time, like you know.
But then just you know release
just
it.
Just time gate it. Don't rep gate it.
Yeah, do what you did on Argus.
I think part of that though is they wanted you to feel like you were progressing through the zone and that it took time to do these things.
Mm-hmm.
But if that was the case, just like time gate it for a specific amount of time.
Right, you know, you finish a quest chain and then there's a week or whatever, 3 days. Whatever.
Yeah.
You finish
and then the next quest chain becomes available.
You finish the quest chain and then the next weekly reset. The next question.
They got rid of all of the rep requirements for it though. Finally.
Yeah, that matters to me now. I have like
Yeah.
2 quest chains in the Insurrection campaign to do.
It gives so much artifact power though.
What Insurrection?
Especially later in not Insurrection. I don't really know about Insurrection, but like I just finished the main storyline because I was doing it with David to get him good Samaritan.
No, I need to do when I come back I need to finish up Insurrection for the mount.
I do need to do Insurrection too. I did end up getting the Lothian Prowler, which was nice.
That was not as hard as you would expect.
It was just like a grind. I just waited until I got it from the chest.
Yeah, because I think that's the only way to get the drop. And then
It's like you either like spam Withered Army training, or you just do the whole. You just wait for it to drop.
I think I did Withered Army training a couple times. It dropped on like
But yeah.
third or fourth try.
But like I kind of wish it was a little more dynamic. Like I don't really know. Like Bellyler was talking about this, and he's like, "Yeah, Guild Wars 2 has a better version of this that they implemented before WoW."
Oh yeah. Have you tried Guild Wars 2 at all?
I have not played Guild Wars 2.
So
I'm not sure if it's really my game either. So
it's a nice game if you like to look at pretty pictures. That's
not really why I play games.
Like
it's a part of why. Like I like it when the pictures are pretty, but that's not the main part.
I mean, it's deeper than that. Their crafting system is confusing like none other. But the whole point, you go to a zone, and that zone you scale to the zone. So you either scale up in level or scale down.
Yeah.
And the point is, and you don't actually have like quests. You have like filling the bar things. You have finding points of interest, and you have vistas. And finding waypoints, which are fast travel nodes. And those are the 4 things you do in a zone.
So the dynamic stuff is more of like the points of interest that are available? It sounds a lot like Argus in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I would say it's the dynamic stuff is more the fact that you have multiple choices on how to get the thing done or everything done. And when you have each of those, the filling the bar thing works exactly like WoW's filling the bar thing. You have like 3 things that'll fill the bar, and you can do.
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z.
So after character stories, what's next? Is that
that is Allied Races.
Island Expeditions? Allied Races, okay.
That is cool stuff, and I have some questions for you during it. So,
okay.
Allied Races are cool. We accept that.
Yeah, we like Allied Races. All in all, good idea.
We're getting Zandalari Trolls, Nightborn Elves, and High Mountain Tauren, as well as Void Elves.
For the Horde.
Yeah, for the Horde. Then we're getting Void Elves, Lightborn Draenei, and Dark Iron Dwarves for the Alliance. Before we go any further, I want to rank the 6 allied races based on what you're most excited for.
Okay.
So let's start from the bottom. Number 6. What would you put at number 6?
Probably Dark Iron. I'm not really that pumped for Dark Iron. Like, yeah, it's cool, but like not really what I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna put Trolls there at number 6.
Okay. Any particular reason why?
It's cool, but I actually kind of like the hunched over Dark Spear Trolls.
Did you hear that they are adding an option to have like straight back orcs and trolls now?
Yeah. But because of how I like when you play a troll hunter,
Yeah.
It's very cool, in my opinion. There's just nothing. There are no races or classes that I really want to play as a Zandalari troll. Like maybe a shaman, but again, not something that I'm
Yeah.
jumping out of my seat to go play right now.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. So my number 5 would probably have to be the Sandalari Trolls.
Okay.
Not that excited for them either.
I'm going to put number 5 Void Elves.
Okay, why do you think that?
Okay, so like the concept, I like that their heritage armor gives them the purpley wings. At least I'm thinking that's from
Uh
their
huh.
heritage armor. Could just be them. Who knows? Uh, I
Their aesthetic is just lacking.
we got some slightly different skin tones of our night elves now. Meh.
Or, we get our slightly differently toned Blood Elves.
Yeah, I mean,
So one of the thing with Void Elves that was interesting to me, they talked about being able to like activate your Void form to give you like a benefit in combat, or like having to activate when you go into combat. So like that means that you're going to have two different skins, one for when you're out of combat and one for when you're in combat. And what I really want to know is what's the like skin that they're showing us? Is that the in combat skin or is that their base skin? Because if that's their base skin, I'm not sold on that. I think that they should look like regular elves, and unless they're in combat, in which case they should start to void out, basically.
yeah, like grow those wings and stuff.
Yeah.
I
For my number 4, I'm gonna go with High Mountain. High Mountain Torn.
okay. Not a fan of the moose
They look
horns.
they just are like regular Torns and Moose Horns. There's not really anything cool conceptually going on with that in my mind.
There's some.
It's like, oh great, we have like new horns for Tauren, and they're basically just Tauren without like sun walking. That's all it is.
They also get
To me personally.
they also get face paint, which normal Tauren don't have, if I recall.
Okay. Just not that excited for them.
I think I'm actually going to agree with you and put High Mountain Tauren at number 4.
I just think that there are other things that I'm more hyped for.
I'm excited to play. Okay, so I'm just gonna get this out of the way. I'm excited for all 6 of these.
I am excited for all of them. I'm just more excited for other,
Right.
for certain ones more than others.
Mm-hmm. I totally get that.
Am I going to play all 6? Let's be honest, probably. Are there some that I'm like relatively indifferent towards? Yes. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. Number 3.
My number 3 probably has to be the Nightborn.
All right.
Like,
we agree on 3 as well.
I'm kind of excited for the Nightborn, but I think that they're the best thing that the Horde is getting. I feel like the Horde isn't really getting that much from allied races at the moment, just like a reskin of 2 of their current races, and then the Nightborn is the only thing that's really distinct to me about the Horde.
I think Nightborn
so like
themselves are significantly more distinct than Void Elves.
That's true, yeah.
Which is why I putting them at 3, unlike where I put Void Elves at 5.
Yeah.
And I think Nightborn are lore wise a bit more interesting.
Yeah. I'm excited to play them. I'm excited to see how they join the Horde. I'm excited to just dink around on a Nightborn elf. I think it'll be cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's I just like how it's in my mind allied races. I don't think it's originally there was the idea that we're gonna get sub races this expansion, and I think sub races should be just additional options. So that's why I'm not so enthused for the Dark Iron Dwarves or the high totem Tauren or the Zandalari, they just feel like, you know, like another option that should be in the character creator rather than something you should like work to earn. Like
Mm-hmm.
to me, like the Nightborn is something that like you work to earn to unlock. Like it's not something that like it's not too distinct to me personally. Like it's distinct from everything else to me personally.
Right. I mean, I think if you look at most of these, they're all basically just at their base, they're all just reskins.
Yeah.
All right,
And
number.
then for me, I actually think my top two are tied. I'm really excited for both Void Elves and Lightforged Draenei. I really get like I'm just 100% behind the concept of them. I like the concept a lot, so I like
Mm,
the idea of them as allied races a lot. That's basically where I'm at. Like I
see,
really like I want to play a Lightforged Draenei Paladin, and I want to play like either a Warlock or Shadow Priest Void Elf. Like I want to do that. Like to me, like I'm just like yeah.
mm, I, I feel the same way because I'm tied between Dark Iron Dwarves and Lightforged Draenei.
I actually probably put light or not light forged. I would probably put the dark iron up higher. It probably wouldn't be my 6. It'd probably be like my 5 or 4. If I'm being totally honest, I thought
Mm,
about that a little bit more, and then
because
I'd like bump down the trolls and the high totem.
I just like so I love dwarves. Dwarves are my favorite playable race probably. It was
Yeah,
my first character I really played was a dwarf paladin.
dwarf male paladin, gray hair all the way.
Um,
That was my second main.
it's just I just I feel connected to dwarves in a way I don't feel connected to the other races as much.
It's that Scottish accent.
And we can even go back to like the vanilla cinematic with the dwarf hunter.
That like yes, that is like
That is the
priceless.
most badass dwarf I've ever seen. Well, him and
I also kind of like the shape shifting druid. I think that was also really cool from the original cinematic. Honestly,
Mandy.
everything that was presented in the intro cinematic, I feel was pretty cool.
Yeah, the what is
Like
it?
what you just the feel of the Forsaken Warlock, like slowly approaching with the green fire, like
Or the
warlockiness.
human mage throwing the fireballs at the
Yeah,
infernal. Or what was the
just a second.
hello everyone. We are waiting. We will check notifications on websites while we wait.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
My sister has some friends over, and I got ambushed.
People, run away.
So they are currently leaving. So,
People are
or
scary.
rather, they're going back upstairs.
People are scary. Run away.
Lol. So where were we? What were we talking about again?
We were talking about
We
dwarves.
were finishing up allied races, right? Oh, dwarves, yes, and the intro cinematic.
Yes.
Like, just like the aesthetic of the like intro cinematic of like just the human mage just flinging
Or
fireballs and
that
the undead warlock.
the Tauren. I want to say it was a druid too. It might have been a shaman. I don't think.
I don't know what it was.
I don't know.
The orc like just furiously charging into battle.
Mm-hmm. But the Tauren was just so beautiful. That's
Like you feel that there's like a certain like there's like a certain aesthetic that each race has, and there's one class that really draws that out.
it felt
And
like it
that's
was the. It
and
was
that's
setting you up for
personally
something epic.
and that's personally what I really like about the Void Elves and the Lightforged Draenei is they have this like sort of class connection that I can see very, very clearly, and that's why they're my 1 and 2. It's like yes, like Void Elf, Shadow Priest, or Void Elf Affliction Warlock, and Lightforged Draenei Paladin. Like those are both like conceptually very strong in my mind.
See, and I look at it and I see Paladin, Lightforged Draenei, of course, and then I see Warrior, Dark Iron, Dwarf.
Yeah, I could see that. I'm not really that big into the warrior fantasy though. Like it's cool, but like I'm more of a paladin person myself.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
If I had to choose between the two.
up until this expansion, up until Legion, I absolutely hated playing anything that was rage based.
It's just I don't like I like the aesthetic of paladin more than I like the aesthetic of warrior.
Mm.
And also guardian druid, I hate rage. I leveled as guardian for a lot and I'm like, this is not really my thing.
They've changed
Back when I
rage.
was leveling my druid.
They've changed rage so much that I don't mind anymore.
This is like current expansion, so
Mm-hmm.
it's just not really my thing. And like I think part of that's also the fact that a lot of your abilities are now wrapped up in your artifact. So until you get your artifact, it's like
Right.
I find that specs like once you get your artifact, your spec just like becomes so much better.
Oh yeah.
Like it's like
Well,
for
okay.
Fire Mage and like for Balanced Druid too, especially because like Astral Power Generation sucks balls until you get Moon.
So you look at druids and you're like you look at guardian druids and you're like, okay, you guys don't die, and then you get your artifact, and you really don't die because you have another button because it gives you
It's
another.
like like also like I'm just not a fan of the way it plays. I like the way like Paladin plays a little bit more.
Are you talking about druids or warriors?
Tanking. With both, to be honest. I haven't really warrior tanked in a while though. Like not since I think Kata.
I mean, that's my goal is to play all six tanks. There's 6 tanks.
I think there's Death Knight, Demon Hunter, there's Monk, there's Druid,
There's warrior,
there's Paladin, and there's Warrior.
6.
I think that's it.
Yes, play all 6 tanks. That's my goal.
But yeah, like I feel like there's a very strong aesthetic with the like aesthetic and class concept, like class aesthetic with Lightforged Draenei and Void Elves. I can kind of see the warrior with the Dark Iron Dwarf, but for me, it's kind of a little diluted.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I can picture a transmog that would work really well with them. That'll be so excited to make.
But like, yeah, like that's why they're my number 1 and 2 because I like that whole. This is epic and like this really just jams with this on a conceptual level.
Right. Heritage armor, awesome, cool concept. Really incentivizes me to run all 6 up from 20 to 110.
Yeah. I just I understand.
Interesting that Heritage armor unlocks at 110, which would make me think that we would get them pre-expansion.
So what's kind of what I'm kind of iffy about is heritage armor doesn't Like you can only use it on that race. Like I get why they're doing it, but I'm not sure if I like that yet.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, it makes sense at
Like
the same time. Like
it
throwing
makes
the
sense.
throwing the dark iron armor on a human just
It wouldn't work, yeah.
it would look cool, but it just conceptually.
Yeah, it just wouldn't gel. And like I understand that, which is why I understand why they're doing it. I'm just, I think it would be really cool to transmog that and just have a battle mage.
Okay, so we're
The
not
Dark
gonna
Iron.
we're gonna talk about other allied races we could get.
Other allied races that we can get.
Let's start with the
Um,
Horde, mostly because I'm really bad at
the
them.
Horde's gonna get Volterra,
It's gonna be
hands down.
Volterra, but we gonna get more? Everything we've seen so far has been reskinnings.
Yeah.
Are we gonna get more? I'm gonna use the word again. Sub races. So like, are we gonna?
I hope they stay away from sub races because to me that's not really the point of allied races. I think sub races should be a character selection thing. Like it should be a part of your character creation process. You shouldn't have to like do the whole sub race, the whole allied race thing to get a sub race essentially. And that's kind of why I'm also kind of like on the Dark Iron Dwarf is because I think that should be an option on the character creation screen. That shouldn't be something that you have to, go
True,
through
but I
and
mean, if this
unlock
is
that
how they
way.
want to implement it, that's how they want to implement it. So I mean, let's
I
work.
yeah,
Let's
I mean I get it, but like I'm not a fan of doing it that way.
right, but let's
But
work
for
with
like
the
three
system they
skins,
put in front of us. So like, Volpera, cool. What else could we get based on what we know? Because I could see,
uncorrupted orcs, the brown skin orcs.
yeah, brown skin orcs. I've heard a lot of talk about.
That's like I almost guarantee that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like either the player base is going to force it or Blizzard is already planning it.
Um, there's no other Pandaren.
You know what would be interesting, and I don't remember who talked about it. Maybe it was Bellular, but Elf Forsaken.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that might have been Taliesin.
That could have been Taliesin, yeah. One
Uh,
of those two. I think
yeah,
that could be interesting. I think that they might do that. That's like a plausible. And yeah, that was Taliesin. That was their most recent video.
yeah. I could see Elf Forsaken. But are we gonna get Elf Forsaken like Forsaken, like rotting, or are we gonna get like Sylvanas, Vanus, whatever you want to use?
That's a good question, and I don't know. Personally, I'd hope for you have the option to choose.
I feel like
But like the reason why Sylvanas isn't really rotting, I think, is because she's a banshee.
mhm.
So like, I could see maybe like banshees like re you know re-inhabiting their bodies like wouldn't be rotting, but I could see it working either way.
There's a
They
quest
could
once
do
you get.
either, or they could do both.
There's a quest later on where you actually become a banshee from being an elf forsaken. So you
Yeah, I
get
could
your
see that.
you re-get your skin back, for lack of a better term.
I could see that. The only problem I have with that is it's like really close to Void Elf.
Yeah. Um. There's got to be a subrace of goblins that I don't know about.
Gilblins.
Okay, let's be serious.
Taliesin mentioned that, but I don't
I
think
know,
that's
but
going
I
to happen.
doubt that. Like,
No, they're going to be involved with Queen Ashara.
exactly. Which is also why you're not ever going to get Naga as a playable race. Stop asking.
Here.
Um,
Let's see. What else? What other races do we have? I mean, we have the Tonka. That could be a thing.
Tonka. Oh, so yeah, we're gonna. I would love to see some of those more diverse Tauren related things like the Tonka or the
Yeah,
Yongol. Yeah, Yongol. Bravo.
yeah. The
Miss.
Yongol could also. What you could also get as the Horde is like the Fellborn Blood Elves.
Mm-hmm. You could also we go into allies because I could totally
Broken
picture.
Draenei. I could see us getting broken Draenei.
I don't think so.
The Crocool type Draenei.
I don't think so. I think if you're are those the like shorter guys who don't have the horns and they just
They're
have
the
like
shorter, malformed ones.
yeah, they're like purple,
Like Noah
mostly
Bunga,
purple
the
ones.
shaman dude, is a broken.
Yeah. Okay, I could see that. I don't think it's terribly likely, but I could see
I
it.
mean, it's possible.
I
I
I
think
would.
that's the level upon which we're judging this. Is it possible for them to include it?
If it's possible, then you're gonna get ogres.
Lol.
Was
I
planned
think
at one
Kul'tiran.
point.
I think I think Kul'tiran humans. We might get that.
I think
That new
that's.
skin.
I think culture and humans is
I think they're
very,
planning that.
very likely. I could
I
see
mean, the horde is literally getting Zandalari elves right now, or Zandalari, not elves, Zandalari
trolls.
trolls right now. So
I could
it's not
see.
that far from that.
I could see us also getting Jinyu.
I could see Jinyu. Yeah,
Um,
that would be cool.
but then I would have to say, what is the horde getting in return? Because I mean, there's the argument that it could be the Hosen, but I don't actually. I never played a horde character through Mists, so I don't know if the
I mean,
Hosen are
they do
friendly
get the
with them.
Hosen. Yeah, they do. They get their own like little faction of Hosen, although Hosen are mostly just like annoying little fucks.
Right. I mean, there's the
I really don't like the Hosen.
right, but I mean, you would have to kind of almost expect it if they give the
If
alliance to
Jinyu are a
Jinyu.
thing.
Um, Wild Hammer Dwarves,
Yes, I want that.
because then you
I
get
want that more than I want Dark Iron, to be honest.
yeah, because nobody likes Moira. But that would then, but if you had all three of them, that would give you the full council.
See, what I really like about Wildhammer over Dark Iron is
They're
the
more
whole like
heartless.
Griffin Rider shaman aesthetic.
Hmm.
That's why I would have preferred if they did Wildhammer over Dark Iron.
Yeah, but Wild Hammer at least always like been in the alliance more,
That's true.
whereas the Dark
Like
Iron have just been that sect that was part of the council,
it's there, but it's also not there.
right? I would also my fantasy is I would love to see the Stoneforged dwarves
That would be cool.
from
And like Mecha Gnomes, like that might actually make a gnome worth playing.
hey, I actually
Mecha
no, I
Gnomes.
like gnome mages, gnome casters, mostly because I like
Leper
having
Gnome
command.
might be a thing.
I heard,
That's a possible alliance thing.
damn,
They could also be Horde with Sylvanas.
I just I don't want to play a leper gnome. Is it
I don't think
possible?
anyone wants to play a Leper Gnome. I think it's possible.
Um, let's see, gnomes, humans. I mean, kul'tiras humans, like we talked about. Uh, Night elves have void elves. For Worgen, I would love to see the
Night Elf Worgen,
okay,
rather than Human Worgen.
sure, but I was thinking
I think
more
that could be a thing.
the Grizzly Hills Worgen.
Okay.
I mean,
Like as a reskin?
yeah,
That's possible.
only because I think it would be cool to have
I
your
think I personally prefer that skin over the current Worgen skin, to be honest.
because I would like to have the
In a lot of ways.
I'd like to have the plaid lumberjack outfit, for lack of a better term.
I don't. I'm trying to think of what other like. I think it'd be really cool if the Tuskar were introduced, but I don't know if they'd put them on a specific faction.
I think they're too. I mean, so they improved character rigging, so I mean they're riggable. I guess they would be riggable. I don't know.
The only problem is that they strike me as more of a faction that would be neutral. So like unless they did one like something that's like the pandas where you choose which faction you go to, I don't really see them happening.
Right.
And I'm not sure that's the like. I feel like Blizzard kind of implied that they weren't thinking of going that route, so I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's likely.
Mm-hmm. See, I want that upgrade. I want those updated Worgen models though, Because if they look anything like Gen did in the cinematic,
That would be cool. Yeah. See, what I really want to see is I really want to see like Moonkin models that change, like somehow, like how it works with cats and bears. Because not having that is like it just really drives me up a wall.
to be
I'm like, I
fair,
want to be able to. I want to be able to customize how my Boomkin looks. You know, like
that is
why
something that
why is that such a fucking problem, Blizzard?
I think that is one of the best things about playing a bear or a cat this expansion, though.
Like, I mean, but like even in Kata, you got the whole Fire Cat skin, like,
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, this is
and
the first
like
time
you
bears have
so
gotten the chance to change. So
yeah, but like I mean, also like they a while back like didn't they like reskin each race so like based off what your choices are, your cat and bear forms change.
it's
They never
just
did that with Moonkin.
based off of your race.
Oh, okay. I thought it was based off what your like hairstyle was. I might have been misremembering
It
that.
your skin color, your fur color just changes.
But
And
like, I mean, I
I think
like
the
the
Tauren ones get horns, but that's about it.
I like the Moonkin aesthetic. I just wish they would let like they just are they've been very inflexible with like allowing you to change it. So like
Well, there's so
you're
many different
always in the
kinds of.
same form on your race. And like I wish they'd do what they did with cats and bears because it's a shapeshift form and like we don't get to see our armor either. Like you know it'd be nice to see some variation.
I think they should also, yeah, but at least you get to see your
Just
weapon.
just a little salty about this.
At least you get to see your weapon. That's the thing that drives me up a wall the most about bear form is that I get these super cool
Fist weapons.
fist weapons,
They are pretty cool.
but I never get to see them.
Yeah, like I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, you know, I'm just annoyed about it personally. Like I've been playing a Moonkin for a while, and
Hmm.
like Blizzard doesn't really do much with Moonkins.
All right, leveling, leveling fixes.
Thank God, thank fucking God.
Um, my big point here is we get to fucking skip Hellfire Peninsula.
I am just excited to be able to go and just do Northrend
There are parts that
and
are
quest through Northrend again.
there are parts in TVC that I liked. Hellfire Peninsula is not one of them.
See, what I really like is how they're taking the leveling experience and like delinearizing it, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like I also like how they're encouraging you to stay in the zone, how the mechanics aren't working against you to stay in the zone and finish the story. That's what I'm really excited for. Because, like, I get annoyed when I can't finish the zone. I get really annoyed. Like, it actually really pisses me off. Like,
Right.
I want to sit there and do it, and I will sit there and do it even if my quests turn green and gray. Because, like, otherwise, like, it just doesn't feel right to me. I don't like to
Hmm.
leave that unresolved. So, not having that work against me, I think, is good. I also like how you can skip through expansions. So like I can just do kata instead of going and doing mists, or I can skip BC and just go straight to Wrath. And I also like how they're basically just jumbling all the dungeons together. So I think like 1 through 60, all of those dungeons are going to be available in your queue, and like it'll scale you level wise in the
Here's the
dungeon.
big question. Does that mean we don't have to deal with the two major sucky points of dungeon leveling, 1 to 60?
That's kind of what I'm hoping for. Like I'm hoping for they just say, okay, all of these dungeons are going to be jumbled up in the queue. You can get anyone randomly from like vanilla content
Or they
1
have
through
like
60.
weekly rotations.
Yeah, and so like you get whatever pops up, and like it could be anything. So like if you're level 15, you could get Raged Fire Chasm, or you could get like
Dire
Sunken
Maul.
Temple or whatever, or
Because
Dire Maul, or like anything.
my goal is to avoid the Dire Maul grind.
Because like that's what I really hate about the dungeon leveling is that like there are points where it's a very linear experience. There's not a lot of like change involved in it, and it's very boring just repeating it over and over again because it's the most efficient way to level. Like
There are three dungeon points that drive me up a wall off the top of my head right now. The Dire Maul
okay, what
jump,
are they?
The Dire Maul chunk. Um, the what is it called?
Blackrock City.
Yeah, but it's got a different name. Like the name of the dungeon grouping is like Blackrock.
The upper city or the dungeon level?
Well, I mean the chunk where you do all of them back to back, and then there's that chunk from like 50 to 56 where that's the only dungeon available.
Is that the one where there's only like 2 bosses that are required?
Yeah, and you can speedrun.
That's dungeon block.
Yeah, because that chunk drives me insane. And then the chunk right after it, where you only have access until like 63 of
So
62
like
of
the points.
Citadel. No, not Hellfire Citadel.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's Hellfire Citadel. It's ramps and Blood Furnace.
Hellfire Rampart is what I wanted though.
I mean, but both of them are.
Well, but Hellfire Citadel is the raid.
It's also the name of the general like building, so.
Right. But the point is,
so I do
have to only do Hellfire Ramparts until like 62.
Yeah.
And it just sucks because they all compound like one after the other.
So the leveling ranges that I really hate with dungeons is the low 50s, like basically like 50 or so to like 56, 57. That range totally blows. Like, because all you're doing is Blackrock City. That's it. You know, like that, and you get a little bit of Sunken Temple to flavor it, but it's mostly just like Blackrock City. Also, I really hate the way they've implemented Blackrock City in the Dungeon Finder. I think it's total shit.
I think it's just.
I think it doesn't do. They literally cut out a third of the entire dungeon. Like they could do the whole Grim Guzzler part of it too as its own, dungeon, but they don't. It's not there, and that really that also drives me insane, and I hate that.
I understand that they left it as a single intact area, but I think it would make the dungeon significantly less confusing, especially to newer players. If you literally
if they added a third section, like that's literally all they need to do.
If they added a third section, or if they actually like cut it up so you couldn't wander into the wrong area.
Kind of like how they did with Stratholme.
Yeah.
That would also make sense
but
too.
I mean, I understand the confusion. Like, if you cut up that like chunk and like it's now over here and you can't get to the other chunk. I understand why they wouldn't do that, but at the same time,
they really just should.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they either need to do that, or they need to include a third part of it to like help spice. Like, yeah, you're still in Blackrock City, but it's another Blackrock City dungeon you can run. You're not spamming the same content over and over again for 3 or 4 levels.
Or you're not doing the speed runs, which, I mean, to be fair, you get done in like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But still.
The other one I hate is early BC. I think BC, like, honestly, the whole chunk from like 50 to about like 63 or so is awful. Like, I think like high 50s aren't too bad because like basically you run through Blackrock Spire a couple of times and then you're done. You're going off to BC, so that's not awful. Like you can basically run and done it, but then you go into BC dungeons, which are like awful, and so like I hate that. Early Wrath is also kind of bad. I get so sick of Utgard Keep. Like, honestly, like early Wrath is really bad in my opinion. I really hate how like 59 to 71 all you can run is Utgard Keep. Like, they need to bump Nexus down a little more. Yeah. Like, they need to bump Nexus down a level or two just so you have that variation, because like literally all you can queue for 69 to 71 is Utgard Keep.
It's the same problem they had when they implemented TBC.
Yeah, it's the exact same problem. Like, I don't like it. I also really hate early Mop. Early Cat is not bad.
Early Cat,
because you can switch between the two.
You get what? Stone?
You get Blackrock Caverns, which is brutal, and you get... It can be brutal if your tank doesn't know what they're doing. And you get the other one, the water one, Throne of Tides.
Throne of Tides sucks if your tank doesn't know what they're doing. Actually, Throne of Tides...
That one... I mean, if you're doing the optional boss in Throne of Tides, which, in my opinion, you should be doing, because optional bosses are, like, basically extra free XP and gold. That like the trash up to that is like awful. The guild one's awful. Like, ugh.
Yeah, no.
Like the dungeons are killer, but that's kind of what I like about Kata dungeons is that if you're not careful and if you don't like, if you're not like, like they punish you for not performing well,
They punish you for
and
not
like
performing well and not knowing your stuff. Especially when you were
like
running them at level on heroic.
and that's what I miss. I miss that challenge, and that's kind of why I like Mythic Plus is that you get some of that. This is actually challenging content back in the game.
Because I loved. There was that point also when you were running mock dungeons.
Yeah, I hate early mop. Like seriously, fuck Storm Cybery. I hate that place so much.
See, I love that place. I think that's a really good dungeon.
I would not mind if it went and died in a fire. I hate it. I've run it so much, and like the jokes have transformed from funny to just annoying to me.
Mm-hmm.
I find it a very annoying dungeon at this point.
I think it's a very good theme. It's a very good concept.
Like, it's a good concept. I just get annoyed from running it over and over again.
Right. I haven't run that dungeon.
Jade Temple was like not as bad. Like it's not annoying to me. Like I'm neutral on it.
Jade Temple.
Like there are a little.
Where you go to the library.
Yeah, there's a library with the scrolls, and there's also the water boss.
Yeah.
That takes forever to die.
And then you fight the
dragon, and then you kill the Shah.
Yeah.
I really hate that part.
The amount of people who also seen on heroic die to that stupid dragon, or the Shah at the end.
Yeah. Also, WoD. I hate WoD dungeons. I hate the eye level requirement at the start that forces you to go and do quests, and I hate how linear it is. I wish that they would honestly like include some of the cap dungeons just to mix it up a little bit.
Right, because the train dungeon is great.
Because it's what's the first dungeon you get? It's the ogre one in the caves with the magma dudes in Frostfire, and then you move on to the docks. And then after the docks, it's like Alkandalon, and then it's Skedis, and then you're done. You have 5 dungeons, and that's it.
Alkandun is a cool dungeon.
I love Alkandun. I like really love Draenei architecture, and I think it's gorgeous. So like Alkandun was great.
I also like the Skedis dungeon.
Yeah, Skyreach was also very pretty. Yeah, I just.
But those first 2 are terrible.
Like you don't really get a lot of overlap between them. Like you run the mines one, and then for a little bit, and then you run the iron docks.
Bloodmaw slag mines.
And you get a little bit of overlap between the iron docks and Alkandalon, and then you get a little bit of overlap between Alkandalon and Skedis. But still, like they just need to take the old dungeons that aren't being used. Like it's not relevant to keep them locked. They should include them and push everything back, or let it be randomized.
Mm-hmm. And then at max you get iron.
You get the Shadowmoon one, and you get a few others. You get the Grimrail Depot,
which is
I don't remember what else there is.
I love the Grimrail Depot. You get the tree one that puts you out.
The one that makes you go to Stormwind.
Yeah.
So that's 4 more dungeons that they could include in the leveling experience, where even if they keep the eye level requirement and push you a level, that's like a dungeon per level.
Mm-hmm. Because I think there were 8. I think there were 8 dungeons in total in WoD.
Like I wish that I feel it's not super optimized for leveling, and I think they did a similar thing with the Wrath content where they took a lot of dungeons that were 80 only and then made them for 79, 78. So you're running new.
That's because they realized that nobody's going to run them at 80 anymore.
I mean, it's the same thing with WoD dungeons, so why don't they just do it with WoD dungeons?
Because that would make sense.
I know, right? They finally did it with Mist dungeons, which thank God.
Speaking of dungeons, we're getting 10 dungeons this expansion?
10 dungeons. You get 4 leveling dungeons for your faction,
and then 2 max
So that's a
level.
total of 8, and then 2 max level ones.
But you get
One of them is Kazan, and we don't know what the second max level one is.
well, but the point is you get 4 per side, and then you hit max level, you unlock another 6.
Yeah,
So much dungeon content.
that is a lot of dungeon content. I'd say it's about on par with Legion, maybe a little bit more. When was Arcway and Court of Stars released?
I want to say 7.1.
Okay. I don't know if it was 7.0 or 7.1 because I didn't start till like 7.1, 7.1, 7.1.5, so.
Oh no, Arcway was 7.0.1.
When was Court of Stars? Was that 7.1?
The Googles will tell me. Or the same, I would assume 7.0 as well. Yeah, same patch.
Okay. So you have the 4 zone dungeons for leveling plus Violet Hold, so that's 5. And then you have Black Rook, you have Multi Wardens, you have Mob Souls, that's 8. Plus you had Court of Stars and Arcway, which puts you up to 10.
I'm gonna double check this.
There's only 1 in High Mountain, so 2, 2, 1, 2 is
3.
I think it's 10. I think it has the same. The same as Legion.
Yeah, there's 10, and then in 7.1 you get Return to Kara.
Yeah, but that's not really like a hero. That's like that was only Mythic. Back when it was originally launched.
Yeah, and then you get Cathedral in 7.2, and 7.3 gives you
plus,
Seat.
So basically plus 3 more.
Yeah, there's 13 in total.
So we're basically on par with Legion at this point. Like,
right.
You know, given where Legion was, we're about the same point.
And Legion is about on point with Kata?
Probably, 1, 2, I don't know.
4, 5, 6. So it launched with 1, 2, 3, 7 dungeons, non-heroic. Then you get Deadmines and Shadowfang at 10, or at max, so that gives you 9. Then 4.1 gave you the 2 trolls, which gives you 11. And 4.3 gave you the time travel one, so there were 12 in Kata.
Yeah. So a little bit below.
And now we look at Warlords, where there were 8 in total.
Rip. That's because they only they didn't add any dungeon content.
Yeah.
Post batch. Oh, Warlords.
And then they actually didn't do any other dungeon content for Mists, but there were 9 at the beginning.
I am actually really excited to see Freehold. You should take a look at that video when you get the chance. It's pretty exciting. I'm not super pumped about the troll one that they showed. It's called the Czar or whatever. It's okay, but it didn't really jump out to me. They talked a lot about the dungeon in Stormsong during the boss design panel, and that one I think is going to be pretty cool. They designed the first boss in that, which is basically a giant water elemental.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going to be pretty cool.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, finish what you were gonna say.
No, no, it's fine.
Okay. Now we get to Heart of Azeroth.
I am not sold on it. I'm not gonna lie.
I am actually quite sold on it.
I like the idea. I have enough questions about implementation and I have some reservations about it.
If it works based on how they talked about it, especially once you watch the deep dive.
So I did watch the deep dive several times actually, but what I really want to know is how does it work with changing your spec? That's pretty important to me. Does it reset your Azerite armor for that spec so you have spec specific stuff? You know, like because like if it doesn't, then it punishes you for trying to play more than one spec. You
No,
know,
I,
and
I
like
think
they're
I think
trying to avoid that.
based on how they
Also,
talked, I think it's per spec. So like
also like
there's an overall
go
level,
ahead.
but then each time each spec has its own settings.
So like yeah, like I get there's the overall level. Like it works like your artifact. You have a level 2, the Heart of Azeroth, and as that increases, you unlock powers on your Azeroth armor. My only question is, okay, so how does that work with having multiple specs and changing between specs? That's my first big question. And if they're not super flexible with that, then that's fine. That means you have to get 3 extra pieces of gear or 6 or 9 if you're a druid. I'm not happy about that, but it is whatever. And then like the other thing that I'm like not really sold on is like, are you able to change them? Like I'm not saying you should be able to like change what you chose in your Azad armor during combat, but like would you be able to like change it in a rest area like Borealis or another city like
I would
that?
assume that it would be something you could change, similar to when you
I hope it's something you
the
can change, but like
the
I
tomes of
feel
like
like
inspiration or whatever.
I feel like they're at the design point where they don't have answers for those questions, and so that's why like I'm withholding judgment on it.
Hmm. I'm excited for it
Like that's
regardless.
why like I'm excited for it. I think it's a good idea. I think it fixes a lot of problems with the artifact system that we saw in Legion. I'm just like I have enough questions about how they're going to implement it that I'm kind of like not sure
Did
yet.
you
I mean like
you watched the systems one, right?
I did, yes.
So
Like
that
they talked about they didn't, so like the thing is like they talked about how the system itself is going to work, but they didn't go into detail about how the system worked.
I
Does that
wonder.
make sense? Like
I'm not like that doesn't particularly worry me because I could completely picture them not going into how it works in detail because of not like
but they don't have
wanting.
answers. I'm like I can foresee problems with it that have not been addressed yet, and so that's kind of what I'm waiting to see.
Hmm.
That's I foresee problems with it that I assume Blizzard is at least aware of. They just haven't told me about it, so like I'm kind of like, yeah, we'll see.
The interesting thing is during that, did you see the crunch numbers?
Thank God for that.
No, but did you see
Like,
how significant those crunch numbers are?
no, I didn't.
Because when they were showing off, how they were showing off graphics of things, of Azerite armor stuff,
Uh huh.
they actually showed a character page
Okay.
of a level 110 character
Mm-hmm.
with eye level 185.
Nice.
Like that is how significant this number crunch is.
But I mean, it makes sense. Like if you think about it, like I assume they're going to crunch the Legion gear down significantly. I think they're going to make it like how leveling content is now, where you only get like 1 or 2 more points on like an item level upgrade. Um, like I can see them doing that. I think that the number squish and the eye level squish to kind of like represent that is needed. Like we're at eye level 1000 now. Like
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying? Like we and like 700 of those item levels, or not 700, I'm sorry, 300 of those item levels are from Legion alone.
My only hope is that
Legion content is from like about around 700 to about 1,000. Like we need a squish. Thanks for that, Titan Forging.
my only hope is that this squish doesn't create the major issues that it did when they squished it the first time.
What sort of issues were that?
Um, it caused major level or major stat discrepancies between Mists and Draenor. So
Like how so? Like
when you hit Draenor and you were wearing, you know, Mist blues or Mist
yeah,
greens from just leveling, you got slaughtered because
rip.
the number jump was so big.
I think that's part of why they did the whole changing like the intro zone to maybe like just address that problem. That might have been why that was a thing. Like I think we need a numbers crunch because yeah, I love doing 1 mil plus DPS on my mage, but like taking that I mean, that's going to increase even more in Antorus. Like, I can foresee people feasibly being able to pull over 200, or not 200, I'm sorry, 2 mil to like 3 mil DPS. I can see that happening. And like, if that's just in Legion, like, imagine once we have Battle for Azeroth rolling, we'll see numbers in the like hundreds of millions. And like, I don't think that's feasible.
Well, I
Like, I
mean,
just, like Belialer was talking about this, and it just essentially adds a lot of noise that you don't need. Like, the last 3 digits or so of any spell you cast don't matter anymore.
right. I mean, I totally agree with that. I'm just saying that
And like,
I don't want the issue that we had when they did the first stat crunch to happen again. Because that made
I hope that they fix that. Like, I hope that they'll deal with that, and
because
I'm pretty
it's
sure that they're aware of it. They've done it before. They know the problems.
right. Because I mean,
So I don't think it will be as
get
big of a deal
killing
at all.
2 mobs and then having to sit down and eat is a little too
Not
vanilla.
not not a good idea.
A little too vanilla for me.
Like, I am like 100% behind the item level squish though, because like you get these huge jumps between expansions that don't mean anything anymore because it's only because like you'll jump from like I don't know like 270 whatever wrath gear to like 370 or whatever um not panda kata gear. I'm just like spitballing here,
I think you have a
but
whole
like
bunch.
those yeah, whatever. But you know what I'm saying? Like you jump 100 item levels between expansions, and like you don't have a power increase associated with that. Like it's just like +1 agility, and then like +2 or 3 more secondary stats compared to the old one. And I think that given the level of difference between them, the item level should reflect that
Right.
in a way that it's not right now.
Island
And of
exp.
course, like that's the problem in a game like WoW, like with it's the nature of WoW, where like it's so prone to power creep that you just can't like you have to do stat squishes, number squishes.
Right. I mean, it's something they can't avoid
Yeah, and like
unless their
I
whole
think it's a good
concept of
idea.
progression was new powers as opposed to bigger numbers. But that's not how WoW works.
Mhm. Well, yeah, but welcome to World of Warcraft. So what's next after the squishes?
We get island expeditions.
How do you feel about those?
I think they're the thing I am the most excited for.
I think they have a lot of potential.
Um, the AI tech that they talk about is exciting if it works how they say it works.
Yeah. Well, I think a large part of that is like with the different levels, you'll see like more smart AI, and so like I hope that the mythic AI is like player level goal intelligent.
Hmm.
Like they have priorities on island, and they will like fulfill those priorities.
Right.
Like
The only
if
thing I'm
preventing you from getting. Go ahead.
the thing I'm hoping for is we don't have to deal with AI rubber banding. Like
What's that?
say you get significantly ahead of them and then they start just clearing a bunch of objectives really fast to make it still feel close.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll do that. I doubt they will, to be honest.
Or
I don't think Blizzard wants to punish you for performing well. I
right.
don't think Blizzard will punish you for performing
The
well.
other one I want them to avoid is them getting on the island and them immediately knowing where everything is if we don't know where everything is.
Yeah, that could be a problem. I think that's part of why they're having them wait. Like they're going to arrive shortly after you rather than at the same time as you, because I think that indicates that they know the AI is going to know what they need to do, whereas you don't know what you're going to need to do. So they give you a little bit of wiggle room.
That
I think that's why that there will be no gap between like PvP people.
right, because they never actually said that there's not going to be a gap. They just kept saying they're going to arrive after you, and I'm like, but how does that work with
Yeah.
PvP? You have to
Well,
arrive at the same
I'm pretty
time.
sure that they arrive at the same time. That's the only way that makes sense to me.
Right, but I mean, they never said that, so I mean, it's just like,
I mean, to me, island expeditions are mop scenarios 2.0.
their Mob Scenarios 2.0, that allow you to have a PvP
What I
element.
like about them is that they're random, but like we don't know. I feel like we don't know enough about the nature of said randomness to really like, um, you know, judge whether or not it's actually an improvement. Because like Blizzard has this tendency of sometimes overhyping things at BlizzCon, Warlords of Draenor, and then not being able to follow through with those promises.
I'm
So like I am for it. I just am like kind of a step back. Like hopefully it works the way they will, but it might not.
I'm excited to try the
I do
PvP
like that
more.
they're role agnostic. I think all in all it's a good idea. I think we need more dynamic type content that's always changing in World of Warcraft because like what you do in World of Warcraft is relatively static. It doesn't really change from day to day. Dungeons are going to stay the same. Like you might get slightly different Mythic Plus affixes, but those change on a weekly basis.
Or different.
Your raids are always staying the same. Like I hope that what this does is it introduces content that you can basically always do and have it always feel different.
At least
That's what I want, and I think that's what Blizzard is shooting for.
at least you get extra, or what we only get that's dynamic right now is we get different world quests, but even that's from a pool.
But even that's relatively static.
Right, it's from a pool, but I mean, at least it's usually different.
But yeah, so Island Expeditions, all in all, I'm in favor for them. I feel like at the BlizzCon announcement, like it got me excited for Battle for Azeroth, but I'm also kind of like, how exactly is this going to work? You don't like, there's not enough details for me to judge whether or not it's actually a good thing.
I'm really excited
Do I like so like the overall theme of my reaction to the Battle for Azeroth announcement and its feature announcements and discussion is that conceptually cool, but it depends on how it's implemented. Like,
I'm excited to try the PvP version a lot.
I think that would be fun.
I don't know how I feel about Warfronts.
Yeah, like I'm kind of excited for those. Like I really dig them on a conceptual level. I really like how it's kind of like that digging into that horde versus alliance concept, but I also feel that, like Heart of Azeroth, like Island Expedition, like all of the new features that they've announced, the amount of detail is low. So like I don't really know like if it's going to be good or if it's going to be bad or how I really feel about it until I get more information.
Well, but I have so much more information on everything else but Warfronts. Warfronts, they're so fuzzy on. Like,
I
I
feel like that's
understand.
because they're relatively early in the
Will.
process for them. Yeah,
Will,
go ahead.
let me talk.
Okay, fine.
Island Expeditions, I understand how those work. I understand how the Heart of Azeroth works. I understand how, like, everything else works. But Warfronts, they're like, it's RTS, kinda. Yeah, it's there.
Yeah.
It's big. It's important.
Yeah, I feel like they don't have the level of detail down for that to like really make an honest assessment. I really dig the concept though.
Mm-hmm. I don't care about World PvP.
Like overall, I really like how the theme of this battle for Azeroth is kind of like taking a step back from the whole there's a big bad, we need to defeat it, and kind of like bringing it back down a notch. I think we kind of need that right now in World of Warcraft.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about World PvP in general, though?
I'm generally not a fan.
I mean, it works in some games, but
I don't think it really works in WoW, at least the way WoW currently is. So like, I am hopeful that maybe these new PvP changes they're making will help with that, but I don't know.
I think these new PvP changes are good. I'm probably never going to toggle them on. But
yeah, like I might toggle them on like maybe once in a blue moon to check it out, but like, am I going to actively do my things with it on? Probably not. Like on a day-to-day basis, I'm going to keep it off.
Exactly. There's more arenas. I mean, that's cool. I like arenas.
They're introducing a new battleground for the first time after like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, say the last time we got one was MOP.
Yep.
Yes.
Hopefully we get more.
We don't get
Hopefully,
battlegrounds fast enough.
hopefully we get more. Like, like it's been 4 years. Hopefully it's not 4 years till we get the next battleground. I do like the concept of the new battleground though. I like how it's Arathi Basin but dynamic.
Hmm. I'm looking
I
forward.
think that's really cool.
I'm looking forward to more like Arathi Basins and more, I guess, better ones, because there's quite a few battlegrounds in the queue that I hate. I really
I
hate.
feel like they have three main types of battlegrounds. Their first type is the whole capture the flag Warsong Gulch-esque type battleground.
Mhm.
They have the whole like Arathi Basin, capture the point, capture the flag, whatever,
Capture the
or not
point.
capture the point type battlegrounds. They have the hybrid of those two, which are basically the same thing. It's just like with a little twist. It's basically just a little twist on capture the base.
There's
And then
raid.
they
There's
have
the
like the
raid.
really gimmicky ones like AV and like Conquest Isle or whatever
Yeah.
that are kind of a little more. Eh.
See, and I just can't stand the capture the flag ones.
I'm not a big fan.
I
Like
love.
honestly, like I don't really care for the WoW PvP. Like I'm probably more of an arena person than a battleground person.
Mhm. Uh, I enjoy good battleground every so often, but I prefer capture the point. Like I love
Yeah,
Arathi. I love Arathi Basin, but Warsong Gulch can go
I feel like
down the hole.
capture the point involves a little bit more strategy than the other types. Because like the gimmicky ones are basically Zerg and hope you win, and the capture
There
the
is a
flag are
strategy in there somewhere. I just don't know how it works.
yeah, exactly. Like it's Zerg and hope you win, like I just wish they like could come up. Like I think that's part of the reason why they haven't announced a new battleground in a while is because they haven't been able to come up with a concept for a new type of battleground.
I mean, okay, Temple of Katmogu was awesome.
I am not very familiar with that, probably because it's a missed one.
So you go
Didn't
in.
you have to do it for the legendary quest?
I don't remember.
Okay.
So what you did is you would go into the center. There are these four orbs, and you could pick up the
Okay.
orb. And while you held an orb, your team gained points. What happened while you held the orb is you took more damage, and you might have done more damage. I don't remember if you did more damage or not. I know you took more damage the longer you held it.
Mm-hmm.
So then it was easier for them to kill you and get the orb back. But it was the first person to
Yeah,
like
I
1,600
think I
points.
remember doing that for the legendary cloak quest line.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a thing that you had to do.
No, that was a good one. And that was different. So I just
Yeah, they need to do more things like that, where it's not capture the flag, capture the point, or weird gimmicky things that involve vehicle combat.
I miss Tolbarad.
Can't you still technically queue for it?
Yeah, but I don't think it's in the random list. I think it's similar to Winter Spring. No,
Okay,
not Winter
or it's like
Spring.
on a schedule.
It's not Winter Spring. Winter Spring's the zone. Winter Grasp. Yeah, because it had a raid tied to it, similar to how Winter Grasp had a raid tied to it.
Yeah. But yeah, like overall, I think the PvP changes are interesting. I really like how they're changing server distinctions.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's for the best,
we're just now going to get RP and non-RP, basically.
basically.
Um,
And like I like understand why people might be confused about that and might complain about that, like, oh, we're losing PvP servers. But I think overall it's going to allow the people who want to PvP on their server, and allow the people who don't want to PvP the option to quest in peace.
right, but then you can still be with your friends who might want to PvP, but they also
Yeah.
want to raid with you. It
So you can keep it off and do your own thing while they do their own thing, and then once raid time, you can just come together.
it makes it harmonious.
Yeah.
So yeah, we talked about
It's
Freehold.
lessening barrier.
We talked about Freehold,
We
which
talked a
is
little bit about Freehold.
Then we have Atal Dazar, which is the troll dungeon. Um, then they have the names of the others. We got Tol Dagor, Waycrest Manor, which I can guarantee is
I'm really excited for that one.
Waycrest Manor. I can guarantee is going to be a leveling one.
Oh yeah, it will be.
Shrine of the Storm.
That's going to be a leveling one. That's going to be the Stormhind one, or not Stormhind, the Storm Song Valley one.
Yeah, because they talked about that. Siege of Boraloo, which I can guarantee is going to be a horde dungeon, probably tied to the war campaign.
Yeah, I can see that.
Temple of Sethralis is probably going to be a dungeon in the
Full
yeah, and Underrod. I'm assuming is going to be in the swamp.
Yeah, that's going to be in this mirror.
So I'm assuming King's Rest and Kazan are the two max level dungeons.
Well, you have 4 leveling dungeons. So, like, what's the Alliance leveling dungeon that's not tied to the zone?
Freehold.
Freehold? Okay.
Yeah, because there's Freehold.
I thought because Hol Dagor is tied to Tiragard Sound then?
That or Tol Dagor is the not tied, and Freehold is Tiragard Sound. Either way, the four Alliance ones I think are Tol Dagor, Freehold, Waycrest, and Storm. And then
because Tiragard is supposed to be really heavy on pirates, from what I've heard.
Right, and then the Horde gets Atal Dazar, Siege of Boraloo, Temple, and Underrot, which leaves King's Rest and Kazan as the leftovers to be the 2 max level dungeons.
So my question is, what is King's Rest? That's what I want to know.
We go visit the tomb of Varian? Yes. There we go.
Maybe. Like, that's just an ambiguous enough name where we don't know.
Or the Anduin Loaf?
There's so, like, in my opinion, there is enough plausible things for King's Rest to be, or King's Fall, or whatever it's called, that, like, we don't know. We can't know. Like, we can speculate, like, 5 or 6 different things, and all of them are equally right.
Right. And then we have our Troll Raid in the Titan Quarantine Facility, the Uldir Halls of Control.
I think that'll be a good raid. I hope it'll be a good raid. I like Titan raids, so...
I think it's going to be similar to High Mountain. It'll be mediocre. Not like, phenomenal, but...
Yeah.
Not bad.
Okay, so my question to you now, since we're talking about raid content, where do you think Queen Ashara is going to fall in terms of the raiding tier? Do you think she's going to end up in the middle, or do you think she's going to be the last boss? Because I could see Blizzard putting her as the last boss for the expansion, and having her be the tie-in to Old Gods, because the Old Gods are essentially what allowed her to become her and her servants to become the Naga, and so you could transition relatively smoothly from her into Old Gods. Or if instead of seeing that, we transition to Old Gods in the middle of the expansion with Queen Ashara.
I feel like it's a better bet I think I would rather them transition to Old Gods at the end.
I would hope that they would leave Battle for Azeroth as its own thing, and then have Old Gods as their own thing.
That would be that would be my preference.
That's my personal preference. I think that I could see Blizzard doing it the other way. Because I personally expected Argus to be its own expansion. So, and look how that turned out.
I never thought Argus would be its own expansion.
I thought we would have I thought basically essentially in my mind, this is way back before I actually played Legion. This is in Warlords of Draenor or before then. I thought that something like the Tomb of Sargeras now would be a transition point in between, fighting the Legion on Azeroth to fighting them, on Argus, retaking Argus and really focusing on that and defeating Sargeras and having Sargeras be an end boss type thing. But they've also recently made a lot of retcons to the lore where, it turns out Sargeras isn't actually the big bad baddie. He's not, he's big evil space Satin, but he's not the ultimate big evil space Satin.
Right, but I mean, I feel that they learned something from when they did time traveling orcs. That when you
Yeah.
drag the uh, villain from across multiple expansions, it kind of gets lost in translation. So
Yeah, that's
they
fair.
didn't want to drag Sargeras across two expansions back to back.
That is fair.
I mean, they technically, that then that would have been the third expansion with Sargeras talked about.
See, what I really hope for is I really hope that we battle for Azeroth as its own standalone. Like with old god influences, yes, they're like the old gods should definitely be influencing things and causing things to happen, but they should not be a focus of the expansion.
Mm. And then we follow that up with old gods.
Yeah, old gods should be old gods should be the the next expansion, and then after that we should have a quote rest expansion unquote, kind of like Mists and Battle for Azeroth, followed up by Void Gods, and like that could be the back of Azeroth because that's something we haven't explored yet, or it could be something it could be just another like South Seas type expansion, like just something to kind of take a breath from the whole we're defeating big bads who are going to like totally wreck the world.
Right. Mm.
Because I think that's another thing that Blizzard has kind of learned, that is that constantly like fighting the big bad over and over again, like that gets old, and you need those breaks from it. You need to like kind of bring the story back down to like regain the dramatic tension.
Mm.
Because like you can't always be increasing the dramatic tension because that doesn't make a good story.
Right. I'm. I think the biggest thing we can take away from this is that I'm excited that it's no more a question of alliance is good, horde is bad. It's more of a how do you react in a situation?
I do like that. I do like how the Alliance and the Horde aren't classified as good and evil as they were in like Warcraft 1 and Warcraft 2. I like how it's a lot more ambiguous, and like they started that trend honestly way back in Warcraft 3. Like that was a thing that they started back then.
Right, but I mean, even when I started WoW, it was not.
I
It
just
still
I
felt
think
very cut and dry. That.
I feel like the Mists of Pandaria, the Panda starting zone, kind of illustrates it best. The Alliance and the Horde have different ideals and different ways they believe to getting things done, and those ideals influence the way things, like the way they do things. So like Horde is definitely all about that, savagery, getting the job done, no matter what the costs, like berserker type mentality, which isn't good. It's not evil, it is. And whereas Alliance has that more, like paladin-y type focus to it,
Right.
for lack of a better term.
This is gonna be interesting. I'm excited. I'm curious
I
to
also
see
like
if
how like
we see Anduin become more of a paladin.
no, Blizzard basically flat out said Anduin's not a paladin. He's a priest, but he's a hero priest, so he's got special things going for him.
Did they?
They did say that.
Okay.
Not quite like that, but that's the gist of what they said.
Okay. Well, this is gonna be interesting, and I'm excited to see how this goes forward.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it plays out. I'm just kind of hesitant to like pass judgment on any of the features until there's a little bit more solid information out on them.
I want my hands on them before I say anything.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel.
I want to know what state the game is in. Like, are they in alpha right now, or?
I presume they're in some form of alpha, considering that they did demo parts of Mizmir and Drustvar, as well as the two dungeons.
Mm-hmm.
At BlizzCon. I would say that they're in some form of alpha. How far along alpha they are, I think, is the real question.
Yeah. So, final thing before I go, because I've got to change my laundry.
This has been a very long conversation.
Oh well. Um. When do you anticipate this coming out? I know we talked about it a little bit, but when?
Honestly, I still say like summer, like maybe closer to late summer than to early summer, but I still think it'll probably be out around summer.
Okay.
How about you? When do you think it's going to come out?
I think it's going to be either late summer, so, August, or early fall, so at the latest, I would say October.
I feel like they aren't really implementing that many systems that would totally break the game, like the way that Garrisons did in Warlords of Draenor. So I don't really see that. Like, I see them being on track. I don't see them being like too far off. Like, yeah, they still have stuff that they need to work out, but I think that they're decently along. I think they're on track.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm definitely expecting it next year. Like, it's not going to get pushed out of 2018.
Yeah, it's not going to be into 2019. It's not going to be pushed that late.
I'm anticipating the Taurus raid being, 6 months at least, which would put you at
Rip.
least what?
I just said rip. It's not that long in the grand scheme of things, but it's still longer than what I would like.
It's not. You have no room to complain. It's not Siege.
Yeah, I know. It's not Siege.
It's not the
that's
year
all
and a
then.
half of Siege.
Oh, Garrisons, thank you for that.
So yeah, I mean, 6 months would put us in the end of May.
Yeah. And then you have pre-patch stuff to do too, so.
Right, so I'd expect,
another month or two, so like, July.
July, maybe August.
I guess we'll have to see if our predictions are correct.
I'm feeling August is the best bet right now, but I could see it, pushing back a little bit.
Yeah, it really depends on how Blizzard feels about the expansion, a few months from now. I think that's really going to determine, like, how long it's going to be pushed back.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, like in the past, for over the past few expansions, they've been relatively good with staying on track.
Right.
I think that now that Ian is, in charge of the game, directing the game, whatever his official title is, I think he's been really helpful in keeping things on track. Like, they've had a pretty reliable 77-day patch cycle for most of Legion.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right. Well, this has been good.
Well, we'll just have to see.
This has been a good talk.
Yeah, lots of stuff to talk about. You should take a look at the zones that I sent you and then tell me what you think about those.
Okay.
I think we should have another conversation about those specifically.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm probably going to take this video and chop it up because uploading 2.5 hours to YouTube is
pain.
Terrifying.
Yeah, I feel you on that. Even just exporting a 50-minute video is bad. 50-minute, hour-minute